He left his shoes behind. Time had run out. The message came at night. One sentence: the hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom. That word, hearts, was the part that mattered. And David stood up and told the people around him, "We leave right now." That was the whole plan. 30 years of building, and he didn't need a second to think. When the hearts of the people are already gone, everything else is just a matter of time. The procession moved out of the city at midnight. His generals, his family, 600 men who had followed him since the days he was hiding in caves. Before the throne, before the palace, before any of it. They came because of him, not the crown. People lined the road and wept as he passed. David walked out of the city he had built, barefoot on the ground, not enough torches to see far ahead. Behind him, 30 years. In front, darkness and the road east toward the wilderness. And the son he still loved, though he had never said it out loud, was sitting in Hebron, getting ready to walk into the city. He didn't look back. In the nights ahead, he would write something, and the last line of it, he almost didn't write at all. But not tonight. Tonight he was just walking. In. He heard it before he saw it. The sound of wooden poles dragging on stone. Heavy, slow. A sound he had heard before. The day they carried it into Jerusalem, when the whole city came out and the streets filled with singing, and he danced until his wife looked away in embarrassment. That same sound, behind him now, moving through the dark. He turned around. The Ark of the Covenant was coming out of the city. Zadok and the Levites, priests carrying on their shoulders the thing David had built a separate tent to hold, the thing that represented the closest a human being could come to the actual presence of God. They were following him into exile. David stopped the procession. He walked to Zadok and told him to return it to the city. Zadok didn't ask why, but anyone watching would want to know. This is a man who had just lost the throne, the palace, the loyalty of his people, the city he had spent 30 years building. And now he was turning away the one thing that was left. Someone else would have held on to it, would have said, "If God is with me, I need this close." But David didn't say that. He said, "If I find favor in the eyes of the Lord, he will bring me back and let me see it again. But if he says he has no delight in me," the sentence ended there. He didn't finish it. Then the ark went back, and David kept walking east toward the dark. There was a Hebrew word he had used when he built Jerusalem, Meos, fortress, the strongest fixed point, the thing that cannot be broken. He had made this city a Meos, walls, watchtowers, stone gates, everything a military mind builds when it wants to make something last. And tonight he was walking out of it barefoot, carrying nothing. Just the road east. What little torchlight reached ahead. That was everything. Later he would write, "The Lord is the Menas of my life," but he hadn't written that yet. Tonight all he knew was that he was walking toward open ground, and that he had chosen to step outside. Zadok watched him for a moment, then turned back. The weight of the ark pulls on his shoulders, and the weight of the question no one in the procession dared ask out loud. If God is in that city and we are walking away from it, where exactly are we going? David didn't have an answer to that. What he had was something quieter and harder to name. If God was here, he was here with or without the box. The box had never been what mattered. That's a very different kind of faith from the kind people usually talk about. The faith of someone with no certainty at all, who steps forward anyway. Aduanamum. They had been climbing for a while when Shimei appeared. He stood on the hillside above them, looking down at the procession, and he started throwing stones. He threw and he shouted. His voice carried clearly in the dark. The words he used were for a criminal, not a king. Even a king who had lost his throne. Go away, man of blood, you worthless man." He kept repeating it, walking along the ridge above them, cursing, throwing stones and dirt. Abishai, one of David's most loyal commanders, turned and asked a very short question. "Should I go cut off his head?" David said no. He said, "Let him curse." Then silence. The procession kept moving. Shimei kept walking the ridgeline above, And David walked in the middle of it, absorbing every word, silent. This is the man who killed Goliath, who had hundreds of loyal soldiers who would do anything he said. And he was letting a man stand on a hill and scream at him, choosing to absorb it. Shimei was shouting things David had already said to himself in the dark. Real sins, real people who had been hurt by his decisions. When someone screams those things into your face, something in him went still, something heavier than shame. He told Abishai, maybe the Lord told him to curse me. A man says that when he stopped being certain, wonder what should marnit. Shimei was heavy, but something else that night was heavier. There was someone. David had known him from years before the throne. Someone from his inner circle. There from the very beginning. The whole court knew it. When this man spoke, people listened like it was the last word on the matter. And tonight that person was sitting with Absalom, giving him everything he knew about David, every pattern, every weakness, everything only someone who had stayed close enough, long enough, would ever know. You can fight back from losing a throne. You can fight back from losing a city. But the one person who understood you most is choosing the other side and taking everything they knew about you with them. There's no strategy for that. Dishona and Ramin Mam. The light on the road only reached so far ahead. Beyond that, darkness. And they had walked far enough now that the city behind them was gone. Later, when he wrote, he would write, "The Lord is my light." But tonight the light barely reached the next step, and the person who knew him best was sitting on the other side. Teruum. The procession stopped when they couldn't go further. The old and the children were done. They stopped somewhere in the wilderness. Open ground, open sky. Darkness on every side. People lay down where they could. The commander set watches. Children fell asleep against each other. David didn't sleep. He sat. And for the first time since they left the city, there was nothing to do. Every decision had already been made. Everyone else was asleep. Just the night. And in that stillness, everything from the night started to settle. There is a Hebrew word for this kind of shelter, sukkah, a temporary covering. Something you put up when you're passing through, knowing you won't stay long. Their ancestors had lived in Sukkot for 40 years in the wilderness, after leaving Egypt, before entering the land. Every year, Jewish families still build one to remember what that felt like. Everything is temporary. Everything can be taken. Tonight, David was living it for real. He had built a throne, a palace, an army, stone walls, a court filled with people he trusted. 30 years, and all of it had come apart in a single night. What remained that night, still his, was an image he remembered from when he was very young. Back then, he had wanted one thing, to be in the house of God, to be close, to see. The moment early in the morning when light first touched the temple, Bakar, the Hebrew word for it, when the priest stepped outside to check if dawn had come, if the morning offering could begin. That quiet moment before the day started. He had wanted that before the throne, before any of it, and sitting in the wilderness with nothing left, that was still what he wanted. To see that morning one more time, and one more. Before dawn, he wrote, just ground, darkness, and whatever the night had left in him. Psalm 27 exists, and what's inside it carries the marks of that night clearly enough. Or, light came into the poem the way the torches had traveled with him all night. Just enough to see the next step, nothing more. Ma'az, fortress, came from the direction of the city he had left behind. Bakar, the morning of the temple, from the one thing he had wanted before the throne, and still wanted now that the throne was gone. And then he reached verse 13. In the original Hebrew text, this verse carries a special marking. Small dots placed above certain words, preserved by Jewish scribes across centuries of copying without explanation. The marking means something unusual is here. Pay attention. The verse opens with the word lul,